Thank you to all of our friends and allies across Canada and beyond. Before we close for today, I would like to introduce a strong ally of the Language Access Coalition of Canada since it began in Ontario. Ontario NDP member at Provincial Parliament for Scarborough Southwest. Thank you and welcome Doly, who will be sharing a few words on her support for language access in Ontario.
Very much. Hello, everyone. Ciao, lehoma, ni hao, hola. I think I covered the top four in Ontario, but also as a Muslim Bangladeshi woman, I should say Assalamu alaikum, adab, and good afternoon, everyone. It's such an honor for me to be here with all of you and address all the attendees and all the hardworking team members of the Language Advocacy Coalition for the work that you continuously do and for putting this together. It's such an honor for me to be here with all of you. As an MPP for Scarborough Southwest, a riding that is incredibly diverse, multicultural, multilingual, I know how important language access is for our community members and for those across Ontario. It is so important to make sure that people have access to services in their native languages. And throughout the pandemic, I actually had a chance to work with coalition members who helped us realize that even more and allowed us to work together to make sure that we're able to provide that. We saw firsthand in Scarborough Southwest how language barriers impacted the livelihoods of so many in our communities, especially seniors, immigrants, people in the disability community. When we talk about deaf community members, I remember canvassing, knocking on a door, and in my earlier days in politics, and since then that experience, it was just someone opening the door, and I remember handing my flyer and not realizing that the person was blind, and from that day we decided that always I will have a card that has Braille. But when we talk about access, those are sort of the type of things that you kind of clue in, and you always have to really push towards. Just yesterday, we recognized Lieutenant Governor David Onley, who also fought for access to services. And I think language access and the need for us to protect native languages also falls under the importance of that accessibility and the ability to make sure that so many Ontarians, especially in the immigrant community, have access to to be able to have agency. Because when we take away the ability for them to contribute and to access information, we're taking away a major part of their agency. And so the work that you're doing in making sure that there is language access, language justice is immensely important to ensure that we can continue building an Ontario that is equitable and accessible for all. This issue is also very close to my heart, and I know many of you in the LAD know this, in the team know this. Not only because language access is critical, to our communities, but also as someone who, was born in Bangladesh, a country where the idea, the birth of sort of, if I may call it that, 21st February or Ekushe February was born, which is, the International Mother Language Day, to promote linguistic and cultural diversity across the world. And this day is actually, and I'm sure some of you know this, in 1952, it was, it's a day where we recognize the events of 1952 and the sacrifices that were made to preserve Bangladeshi and the Bengali people's unique cultural identity and their language, because they were told that they couldn't speak in their mother tongue. And so many, took out to the streets, especially students, which I think is remarkable, and fought for that. And obviously the result was terrible. They were faced with terrible violence. So many lost their lives. And today on 21st February, we recognize International Mother Language Day, sparked from that history. And for me as a Bangla speaker, it's very personal for me. And I know that in our family and in the community that I belong to, it is very special because it shows that people actually lost their lives to protect their mother tongue. In Ontario, this movement also is important because of the history that we share with our Francophone community and our Indigenous community. And I'm sure you talked about this as well. The fight for languages, how it relates one to one another, and the dark history of Canada's, painful legacy of residential schools and the erasure of so many beautiful languages, of so many communities. I sit next to my colleague, the other deputy leader of our party, of the official opposition, Sol Mamakwa, who shares with me the atrocities that took place in his community, and what it meant for so many who are now trying really hard to preserve and to relearn their languages that that were intentionally erased. And that kind of atrocity, that kind of legacy, cannot be forgotten. We have to remember the history, the painful history, and we have to do better to bring justice, to reconcile, and to make sure that we're taking the necessary action to ensure that that never ever happens again. The languages we speak are a powerful part of our identity. We know this especially through the ways that many of our Indigenous leaders across this country have told us and what it meant for them. And I just want to say, I thank the coalition for their efforts, for your activism, who make this day possible. I also want to thank so many of the other leaders who work towards recognizing International Mother Language Day internationally. And days like IMLD are a really strong reminder for our community to make sure that we have a right to speak our language, and to make sure that we celebrate those as well and we preserve our native tongue. While we address the dark past and the systemic racism, it's people like me who are 1.5 generation, I would say, or second generation, or immigrant Canadians. It's important for us to make sure that we really work together to break those barriers, those linguistic barriers, and showcase the power of our language, in making sure that we're creating those bridges for the intergenerational gaps that's being created across our communities, especially in the Indigenous communities and the immigrant communities. I thank all of you for the work that you've done. I want to salute you for continuing to do the advocacy work, and that the Ontario NDP, New Democrats, are always with you in recognizing this special work, and we will continue to make sure that we're providing language access across Ontario and across Canada. Thank you so very much, and it's such a delight for me to join you all this afternoon.
Thank you, everyone. This concludes our third annual Canadian Language Advocacy Day celebration. I would like to thank everyone who made these past 2 days possible, our incredible speakers, attendees, conference organizers, volunteers, interpreters, 40 plus coalition members, NCIS for sponsoring, and all other advocates that support the work being done to make equitable language access across Canada a reality. We encourage you to support all the amazing equitable language access marketplace participants, coalition members, and speakers. Finally, I would like to end today with a call to action to support language rights in Canada. Write an email, letter, or visit your local political representatives and ask them what they are doing for language access in Canada. Language connects us all, but also acts as a barrier to essential services to so many. So we need to work collectively to make this change happen.